The moment billionaire Ethan Blake saw his ex-wife standing outside his mansion with a baby in her arms, the smug smile he had been wearing all night disappeared. Because this Christmas invitation had never really been about forgiveness. It was about revenge. Ethan had spent months preparing for this exact night. The enormous Christmas tree imported from Switzerland, the celebrity chef, the champagne, the expensive decorations covering every corner of his glass and marble estate. Even the beautiful woman standing beside him in a sparkling red dress had been carefully chosen for one purpose: to prove to his ex-wife, Claire, that losing her had meant absolutely nothing. At least, that was what Ethan wanted everyone to believe. He had invited business partners, wealthy friends, relatives, and people who remembered exactly how bitter his divorce had been. Ethan wanted Claire to walk into the mansion she once called home and see him richer, happier, more powerful, and completely moved on. He imagined her jealousy. He imagined her regret. He imagined the quiet satisfaction of watching her realize she had become replaceable. But Ethan had imagined everything except the baby. When the doors opened and Claire stepped inside, conversation slowly died across the room. She looked different, calmer, stronger, and wrapped carefully against her chest was a tiny child. Ethan stared. Then his eyes moved from Claire's face to the baby. Back to Claire. Then back to the baby again. Something changed in him so quickly that even the guests closest to him noticed. Claire tightened her grip around the child. She had expected awkward questions. Maybe cruel jokes. Maybe Ethan would proudly introduce his glamorous new girlfriend and spend the entire evening reminding her that their marriage was ancient history. Instead, Ethan walked straight toward her. His expression was unreadable. Whose baby is that? The question sounded simple, but Claire immediately knew it was. She hesitated, and that tiny hesitation was enough. Ethan's face hardened. The entire room seemed to disappear around them. Because there was something Claire had never told him. Something connected to the final weeks of their marriage. Something Ethan had discovered only days before Christmas. And suddenly, his invitation wasn't the cruelest surprise waiting inside that mansion. His next move was, in front of everyone, Ethan did something so shocking that Claire nearly dropped everything in her hands. His family protested. His girlfriend demanded an explanation. Even Ethan's closest friend warned him that once he crossed this line, there would be no going back. But Ethan ignored them all. He looked directly at Claire and made a decision that could destroy his reputation, his fortune, and the carefully constructed life he had spent years building. Claire stood frozen. She had come prepared to survive one uncomfortable Christmas dinner. Instead, Ethan forced her to confront the secret she had buried since their divorce. And what happened next pushed Claire into making a choice nobody in that room believed she was capable of making. A choice so unthinkable that before Christmas morning arrived, Ethan Blake would finally understand that some people only realize what they have lost when it returns, carrying the one truth money can never erase. Before we continue, if you believe pride should never be more important than family, that people should be held accountable for the pain they cause, and that real love is proven through actions rather than wealth, kindly subscribe and turn on the notification bell now. Stories like this remind us that one hidden truth can change an entire life, and you won't want to miss what happens when Ethan discovers that the greatest thing he ever lost was something his billions could never buy back. 3 hours before Claire arrived, Ethan stood at the second-floor window of Blake Manor and watched snow settle over the long driveway. Below him, valets hurried between black cars. Caterers carried silver trays through the side entrance. White lights covered the bare branches of 20 maple trees, turning the property into something that looked less like a home and more like the winter headquarters of a royal family. Ethan had paid nearly $80,000 for the decorations. He had approved every detail personally. Not because he cared about Christmas. He had not cared about Christmas for years. He cared because Claire used to. When they were married, Claire had refused to let a professional decorator touch their Christmas tree. A home shouldn't look perfect, she had once told him while standing barefoot on a ladder, struggling to place a crooked silver star at the top. It should look lived in. Ethan had laughed at her. You realize I could hire someone to make that straight. And ruin it. It's leaning 6 inches to the left. Exactly, character. Back then, he had pretended her little traditions annoyed him. Christmas cookies burned at the edges. Old records playing through the kitchen. Cheap ornaments collected from roadside shops whenever they traveled. She had once hung a $5 wooden snowman beside an antique crystal ornament Ethan purchased at auction for $12,000. He had called it ridiculous. Claire had called it marriage. Now the wooden snowman was gone. So was Claire. And the tree downstairs was perfectly straight. Ethan told himself that was better. A knock came at the door. His closest friend, Jack Mercer, entered without waiting. Jack had known Ethan since they were teenagers, long before Blake Technologies turned Ethan into one of the richest men in America. He looked around the enormous bedroom and then at Ethan. You're really doing this? Ethan adjusted the cuff of his shirt. Doing what? Inviting your ex-wife to a Christmas party designed specifically to show her how amazing your life is. Ethan glanced at him. You make it sound childish. It is childish. Then you're free to leave. Jack sighed. That was Ethan's favorite weapon. Not shouting. Not threats. Distance. He could remove a person from his emotional world with the same efficiency he used to remove an executive from a board meeting. Jack had watched him do it to competitors, employees, friends, and eventually Claire. You haven't seen her since the divorce, Jack said. Exactly. And you suddenly want her here. I'm being civilized. Jack almost laughed. You sent her an invitation engraved in gold. It's Christmas. You invited 4 people she knows dislike her. They happen to be business associates. You invited your mother. She lives here half the year. And you invited Madison. At that, Ethan paused. Madison Cole was beautiful, confident, socially flawless, and extraordinarily useful at events like this. They had been seeing each other for 5 months. The press had already started calling her Ethan's likely second wife. Madison certainly behaved as though the position had been promised. She's my girlfriend, Ethan said. I know. Then why wouldn't she be here? Jack studied him. Because you don't love her. Ethan turned. Careful. There's that look. What look? The one you get whenever someone says something you can't purchase your way out of. Ethan walked toward the door. The party starts in 20 minutes. Jack remained where he was. You found something, didn't you? Ethan stopped. For several seconds, neither man spoke. Then Ethan looked over his shoulder. What are you talking about? You've been strange all week. I run 12 companies. You've run 12 companies for years. Then perhaps you've finally noticed that I'm busy. Jack shook his head. No, something happened. Ethan stared at him. For a moment, his composure slipped. Only slightly. But Jack saw it. 3 days earlier, Ethan had been searching through a locked drawer in his old study for documents related to a property transfer. The study had once belonged to both of them. Claire kept household records there. Ethan kept contracts there. After the divorce, he ordered every trace of her removed. Or so he thought. Behind the bottom drawer, trapped between the wooden panel and the wall, he found an envelope. His name was written across it. Not Mr. Blake. Not Ethan Blake. Just Ethan. Claire's handwriting. The envelope had never been sealed. He should not have opened it. He did. Inside was a folded note. There were only 4 lines. Ethan, I tried to tell you tonight, but you wouldn't let me speak. The doctor confirmed it this morning. I'm pregnant. His hands had gone cold. There was also a medical appointment card dated 11 months earlier. 4 days before Claire left Blake Manor forever. Ethan had read the note 6 times. Then 10. Then he had sat alone in the study until sunrise. He calculated dates. He searched memories. He remembered Claire standing in the doorway the night their marriage ended. Her face pale. Her fingers shaking. Her words. Ethan, before you make me leave, there's something you need to know. And his answer. I already know everything I need to know about you. That sentence had returned to him every hour since finding the letter. Jack stepped closer. What did you find? Nothing. Ethan. Drop it. You look terrified. I don't get terrified. Jack gave him a tired smile. Of course not. Ethan left the room. Downstairs, nearly 100 guests had already arrived. Crystal glasses caught the light of 3 enormous chandeliers. A pianist played near the fireplace. Laughter rose over conversations about investments, politics, vacation homes, private schools, and markets. Ethan moved through the crowd effortlessly. He had spent most of his adult life perfecting the ability to look comfortable when he felt nothing of the sort. People shook his hand. They congratulated him on Blake Technologies' latest acquisition. They complimented the house. They complimented Madison. Madison appeared beside him wearing the red dress he had purchased for her in Paris. She kissed his cheek. You disappeared. I was upstairs. You promised to stay near me tonight. I'm here now. She smiled for the benefit of the people around them. Madison understood performance. It was one of the things Ethan appreciated about her. Claire had never understood performance. If she was angry, her eyes showed it. If she loved someone, they knew. If she thought Ethan was wrong, she told him, even in rooms where everyone else was too afraid. Especially in those rooms that had once fascinated him. Later, it infuriated him. Madison leaned toward him. Is she really coming? Ethan knew who she meant. Yes. Why? Because I invited her. That isn't an answer. It's the only one you need. Madison's smile disappeared for half a second. I don't like surprises, Ethan. Neither did he. Which was why, when the front doors opened 40 minutes later and Claire walked in holding a baby, Ethan felt as though someone had knocked the floor out from beneath him. The room fell quiet. Jack whispered something Ethan didn't hear. Madison's hand tightened around his arm. Claire wore a simple dark green dress under a winter coat. Snow rested in her brown hair. And against her chest slept a baby girl wrapped in a cream-colored blanket. Ethan could barely breathe. He walked toward her. The guests watched. Claire watched too. She looked exactly as he remembered, and nothing like he remembered. The woman who left his house 11 months ago had been exhausted, hurt, and carrying a suitcase with shaking hands. This Claire stood straight. Her eyes were steady. There was sadness in them, but there was no fear. "Whose baby is that?" he asked. Her expression changed. "Not much." "Enough." Ethan felt his heart strike against his ribs. "Her name is Lily," Claire said. "That wasn't my question." "I know." "How old is she?" Madison came up behind him. "Ethan, people are watching." He did not look away from Claire. "How old?" Claire's jaw tightened. 4 months. 4 months. The room became distant. 4 months. The dates fit perfectly. His mother, Margaret Blake, moved closer. "Claire." Claire looked at her. For the first time, her composure cracked. Margaret had loved Claire like a daughter. The divorce had broken something between Margaret and Ethan that had never fully healed. Margaret looked at the child and pressed one hand to her mouth. "Oh my God." Ethan reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. Claire's face went white. He removed the folded letter. "Her letter. You found it." It was barely a whisper. "Yes." "When?" 3 days ago." Claire looked away. Madison stared between them. "Found what?" Ethan opened the note. He did not read it aloud. He didn't need to. Claire knew every word. "You knew," he said. Claire's eyes flashed. "I tried to tell you. Once. 3 times." Ethan froze. "What?" "I tried 3 times." Claire adjusted Lily carefully as the baby stirred. "The first time was in your office. You were screaming into the phone about the Hudson deal. I waited 40 minutes. You told me anything that wasn't an emergency could wait." Ethan remembered. "The second time was at dinner," Claire continued. "You took 2 calls, answered 12 emails, and left before dessert because Daniel Reeves told you there was a problem with the merger." Ethan glanced across the room. Daniel Reeves. His chief operating officer. The man who had stood beside him during the divorce. Daniel's face had suddenly lost its color. Claire saw Ethan notice. Her voice lowered. "The third time was the night you told me to leave." A memory struck him. Claire standing near the staircase. A suitcase by her feet. Her hand resting protectively over her stomach. He had noticed it then. He had assumed she was anxious. How could he have been so blind? Madison stepped between them slightly. "Ethan, whatever happened between you two can be discussed privately." "No." His voice cut through the room. Madison stared at him. "No," she repeated. "No more private lies." Daniel shifted near the fireplace. Ethan looked at him. And suddenly, another piece of the past rose from the grave. 11 months earlier, Blake Technologies had been preparing the largest acquisition in company history. Details leaked to a financial reporter. The leak nearly cost Ethan hundreds of millions of dollars. Daniel had brought Ethan evidence showing that someone had accessed confidential files from a computer registered to Claire. Claire denied it. Ethan had not believed her. He remembered the confrontation. "You went through my files." "No. The access came from your computer." "Then someone used my computer." "How convenient." Claire had stared at him. "Do you actually think I would sabotage you?" "I think people do strange things when they're angry." "I'm your wife." "That doesn't answer the question." Her face had changed. Even now, Ethan could remember that moment. It was the second Claire stopped fighting to save their marriage. She had looked at him as though she had suddenly understood something terrible. Not that he was angry, that he did not trust her. Daniel had encouraged him to protect the company. His attorneys drew up papers. Claire was offered a settlement far smaller than she could have fought for. She took it anyway. She wanted out. Ethan spent the next 11 months telling himself that proved her guilt. Why else would she walk away so easily? But 2 days after finding Claire's pregnancy letter, Ethan had done something he should have done 11 months ago. He investigated. Personally. Not through Daniel. Not through company lawyers. Not through people whose salaries depended on telling him what he wanted to hear. The truth took less than 6 hours to uncover. Claire's computer had been accessed remotely. From Daniel's office. Daniel had leaked the acquisition details himself, purchased shares through a hidden account, and positioned himself to profit if the deal collapsed. He had blamed Claire because Ethan was already angry with her. Because everyone in the company knew Ethan Blake had one weakness: his pride. Daniel had simply aimed it at Ethan's wife and watched Ethan do the rest. Ethan turned toward him. Daniel. Daniel lifted his chin. This isn't the place. No. Whatever you think you discovered, we should discuss it tomorrow. Ethan almost smiled. It was the same sentence he had used on Claire years ago whenever she raised something inconvenient. Tomorrow. Later. Not now. Until there were no tomorrows left. Security, Ethan said. 2 men appeared. Daniel's eyes widened. What are you doing? You're leaving. Ethan. You're terminated, effective immediately. Murmurs spread around the room. Daniel stepped forward. You can't be serious. I've already sent the evidence to the board's independent counsel. Now the room erupted. Daniel's face hardened. You have any idea what that will do to the company? Yes. The investigation could freeze the merger. Yes. Our stock could collapse Monday morning. I know. Then you're insane. Ethan looked at Claire. No, I was insane when I protected a company before protecting the truth. Daniel pointed toward Claire. You're destroying everything because she walks in here with a baby. Ethan's expression became cold. No, I'm destroying your lie because I finally discovered it. Security escorted Daniel toward the door. But Ethan wasn't finished. He walked toward the raised platform beside the piano. Jack grabbed his arm. What are you doing? Something overdue. Think carefully. I have. Jack lowered his voice. If you say publicly what I think you're about to say, there's no walking it back. Ethan looked at him. I walked something back once. His eyes shifted toward Claire. I lost 11 months. Jack released him. Ethan took the microphone. The room quieted. Madison stood rigidly near the staircase. Claire remained by the entrance holding Lily. Ethan looked at the faces filling his house. Board members. Investors. Reporters invited as social guests. Relatives. People who had heard his version of the divorce. People who had believed Claire was selfish. Disloyal. Maybe dishonest. Because Ethan had allowed them to believe it. My attorneys will hate what I'm about to say, Ethan began. A nervous laugh moved through the room. Ethan didn't smile. 11 months ago, my marriage ended after I accused my wife of betraying my company. Claire's eyes widened. I was wrong. Silence. I had evidence presented to me. I trusted the evidence because it supported what I was already angry enough to believe. He looked toward the doors through which Daniel had disappeared. I discovered this week that Claire did not leak confidential information from Blake Technologies. She did not sabotage my company. She did not betray me. Margaret began crying. Madison whispered, "Ethan, stop." He continued, "I betrayed her." Someone inhaled sharply. Ethan felt the old instinct rise inside him. Protect yourself. Control the story. Say less. Admit nothing. His father had taught him that. Not through wisdom. Through abandonment. Ethan had been 12, the Christmas his father disappeared. One morning, there were presents beneath a small plastic tree. The next morning, there was an empty closet and a note. His father had taken nearly all the family's savings. Ethan remembered his mother sitting at the kitchen table with unpaid bills spread around her. He remembered promising her that no one would ever have that kind of power over him. He had kept the promise. Too well. By 35, Ethan controlled companies, buildings, contracts, people. And when Claire became the one person capable of hurting him, he had treated love like a hostile takeover. Secure the assets. Eliminate uncertainty. Never be the one left behind. So he had forced her out first. I told people Claire chose money over our marriage, Ethan said. That was false. She accepted far less than she was entitled to because she wanted the divorce finished. Claire shook her head. Ethan. He looked directly at her. I let people damage your name because protecting mine was easier. His mother whispered, "My God." Then Ethan removed another envelope from his jacket. His attorney had delivered it that afternoon. I signed these papers 2 hours ago. Madison climbed one step toward him. What papers? Ethan ignored her. The divorce settlement contained confidentiality provisions protecting me and Blake Technologies from statements Claire could make about our marriage and the accusations surrounding the company leak. Claire stared. The agreement is being voided. A board member stood. Ethan, you cannot announce that without counsel. I just did. You could expose yourself to litigation. I know. Claire looked genuinely frightened now. Not for herself. For him. That hurt worse than anger. Even after everything, some part of her still cared whether he burned his life down. Ethan continued. Any financial benefit I received because Claire chose not to contest the settlement will be returned. The house in Connecticut that belonged to her grandmother was incorrectly included among disputed marital assets. I purchased it during liquidation. Claire's breath caught. She had never known who bought it. Ethan looked at her. It has been transferred back to you. Her lips parted. And an independent accounting firm has been authorized to determine every dollar you surrendered because you wanted to escape the divorce quickly. Claire shook her head. I don't want your money. I know. That was the point. Ethan looked toward the baby. And if Lily is my daughter? The room exploded. Madison shouted his name. Margaret gripped the railing. Jack closed his eyes. Claire went completely still. Ethan's voice strengthened. If Lily is my daughter, she will never hear that her mother trapped me, used me, or returned for my money. Anyone who says it will answer to me. Enough! Madison stormed toward him. You humiliate me in front of 100 people and expect me to stand here. Ethan lowered the microphone. I never should have involved you. Involved me. Her laugh was sharp. You introduced me to reporters. You brought me into this house. Last week, you let me discuss wedding venues with your mother. Margaret looked away. Madison pointed toward Claire. And now she arrives with a baby, and suddenly you're confessing your sins. It isn't sudden. It happened the second you saw her. No. Ethan looked at Claire. It happened when I finally saw myself. Madison stared at him for several seconds. Then she reached up, removed the diamond necklace he had given her, and placed it on a table. You know what your problem is, Ethan. He said nothing. You thought replacing her would prove you stopped loving her. Claire closed her eyes. Madison picked up her coat. But all you proved was that you never learned how. She walked out. No one followed. Claire looked at Ethan as though she wanted the marble floor to open beneath her. You had no right to do this. He stepped down from the platform. I know. You turned my life into entertainment once already. I know. You could have called me. I did. Yesterday, after 11 months. I didn't know about Lily. You didn't know because you made sure I believed you didn't want to. The words landed harder than anything Daniel had said. Lily woke and began to fuss. Claire rocked her gently. Ethan watched the tiny face emerge from the blanket. Brown hair, a small crease between her eyebrows, and a familiar, stubborn expression Ethan had seen in childhood photographs of himself. He felt dizzy. Is she mine? Claire looked around the room. Guests were pretending not to listen. Not here. Please. It was perhaps the first time most people in that mansion had heard Ethan Blake say that word as though he meant it. Claire studied him. Then she turned toward Margaret. Is the library empty? Margaret nodded quickly. Claire walked away. Ethan followed. Jack stopped anyone else from approaching. Inside the library, Claire laid Lily carefully in a small portable carrier she had brought with her. Ethan closed the door. The sound of the party became distant. Claire turned. Yes. He stared at her. Yes, what? Her eyes filled. She's your daughter. Something inside Ethan broke. Not loudly. Not dramatically. It simply collapsed. He sat in the nearest chair. His daughter. 4 months old. He had missed 4 months. Her birth. Her first night. The first time she opened her eyes. Every morning. Every cry. Every tiny change. And before that, he had missed the pregnancy because he had been too angry to let Claire finish a sentence. What's her full name? Lily Grace Bennett. Bennett was Claire's maiden name. Ethan looked down. You didn't use Blake. No. He deserved that. When was she born? August 17th. Was she? He struggled. Was she healthy? Claire's face softened despite herself. Yes. Were you? There was a pause. Eventually, his head snapped up. What does that mean? It means childbirth isn't effortless, Ethan. It means my sister stayed with me. My doctor took care of me. Lily was fine. You should have called. Claire laughed once. It contained no humor. Called you? Yes. And said what? Ethan had no answer. Claire continued. Hi, Ethan. Remember the wife you accused of corporate betrayal, the one you had escorted out of your house, the one your attorneys warned not to discuss your private affairs? I'm having your baby. Would you like to come? His face tightened. I never told them to threaten you. You hired them. I didn't know. That sentence is becoming a habit. He looked at the floor. She was right. He had built a life in which he never needed to know how ugly his orders became, by the time they reached ordinary people. He simply gave instructions. Others turned them into consequences. His father had abandoned a family directly. Ethan had become sophisticated enough to hurt his from a distance. "Why did you come tonight?" he asked. Claire looked toward Lily. "I almost didn't." "Then why?" "Your mother called me." Ethan frowned. "My mother? She didn't know about Lily." "Then what did she say?" "She said you'd been different since Monday. She said something had happened." Claire sighed. "And your invitation had already been sitting on my kitchen counter for a week. So you came because of my mother." "I came because I was tired." "Of what?" "Being afraid that one day you would find out about Lily from somebody else." Ethan swallowed. "You plan to tell me tonight?" "Yes." "Even before what I did downstairs?" "Yes." The answer destroyed the last excuse he might have used to make his public confession heroic. Claire had come voluntarily. She had been ready to face him without guarantees. His grand gesture had not created her courage. It had only arrived 11 months late. Ethan stood and walked slowly toward Lily. He stopped several feet away. "Can I see her?" Claire's protective instinct appeared immediately. He noticed, and it shattered him. There had been a time when Claire trusted him enough to fall asleep beside him. Now she had to consider whether he was safe enough to stand near his own child. Claire eventually nodded. Ethan approached. Lily blinked up at him. Her eyes were grey-blue. His mother's eyes. His own. He crouched. He had negotiated deals worth billions without shaking. His hand trembled now. "Hi," he whispered. Lily stared. "That's Lily," Claire said quietly. "I know. You asked." "I know." He smiled weakly. Lily grabbed his finger. Ethan stopped breathing. Her hand was impossibly small. She held him with absolute trust because she did not know him well enough not to. Ethan looked away quickly. Claire saw the tears anyway. "You missed her first smile," she said. He nodded. "You missed the night she refused to sleep unless I walked circles through the apartment for 4 hours." He nodded again. "You missed the first time she laughed." Ethan closed his eyes. "I know." "No, Ethan." Claire's voice shook now. "You keep saying that, but you don't know." He looked at her. "You don't know what it was like filling out hospital forms and leaving the father's information blank." His face crumpled. "You don't know what it was like when nurses asked if someone should call my husband." Claire wiped at her cheek angrily. "You don't know what it was like wondering whether I was protecting my daughter from you or stealing her father from her." Ethan could barely speak. "I would have come." "Would you?" "Yes." "The man you are tonight might have." That silenced him. "But I didn't know who you would be then." Claire looked toward the door. "The last night I lived here, I begged you for 5 minutes." Ethan remembered. He wished he didn't. She had stood in his office. "Please, Ethan, just 5 minutes without your phone, your attorneys, Daniel, or the company." He had stared at a report. "You can say whatever you need to say while I read." "No, look at me." "I'm listening." "You're not." "Claire, I have a company in crisis." "And you have a marriage in crisis." He had finally looked at her. "And whose fault is that?" That sentence had ended everything. Back in the library, Ethan sat beside the carrier. "What do you want from me?" Claire gave him a sad smile. "For once, that's the right question." "I mean it." "I don't know yet." Anything. That's your problem. He frowned. You always think the answer is something enormous. Claire gestured toward the mansion. A house, money, lawyers, public declarations, transfers, grand gestures. What should I do? Show up. He stared at her. When? Tuesday. What happens Tuesday? Lily has a pediatric appointment. He blinked. That's it. Claire's expression hardened. No, that is not it. I didn't mean. That is her life. Appointments, bottles, laundry, bad nights, good mornings, sitting on the floor for an hour because she discovered her own feet. Despite everything, Ethan smiled. Claire almost smiled too. Almost. You want to be her father? She asked. Yes. Then stop waiting for a billionaire-sized problem to solve. He looked at Lily. I'll be there Tuesday. We'll see. I said I'll be there. And 11 months ago, you promised to love me for the rest of your life. The smile vanished. Claire picked up the carrier. We'll see means we'll see. She moved toward the door. Ethan panicked. Wait. She turned. Don't leave yet. I've said what I came to say. Stay for dinner. No. For my mother. That's manipulative. He winced. You're right. Claire reached for the handle. What if I ask for myself? She looked back. I'm not asking you to forgive me. Good. I'm not asking you to come back. Good. I'm asking for 20 minutes. Why? Ethan looked toward Lily. Because this will be my daughter's first Christmas Eve with me, even if I only get 20 minutes of it. Claire stared at him for a long time. Then something unexpected happened. Lily began to cry. Claire lifted her. Ethan stood helplessly. What does she need? I don't know yet. What do you mean you don't know? Claire gave him an exhausted look. Barbies don't send calendar invitations explaining the problem. Those. Claire checked her bottle. She ate recently. Is she cold? No. Tired? Probably. What do I do? Claire looked at him. You want to help? Yes. She hesitated. Then she held Lily toward him. Ethan did not move. Claire raised an eyebrow. $1 billion mergers don't scare you, but a 12-pound baby does. She looks breakable. She is. What if I hold her wrong? I'll show you. For the first time in 11 months, Claire stepped close enough that Ethan could smell the faint vanilla perfume she used to wear. She positioned his arms. Support her here. Like this. Higher. Here. Yes. Claire carefully placed Lily against him. Ethan became completely motionless. Lily cried once. Twice. Then stared up at him. Hello again, he whispered. Claire watched. There was grief in her expression. Because this was beautiful. And because it should have happened 4 months earlier. Lily reached up and grabbed Ethan's tie. He looked alarmed. Claire laughed. It escaped before she could stop it. Ethan looked at her. For 1 second, the last year disappeared. They were simply Ethan and Claire again. The young couple who once ate takeout on the floor of a tiny apartment because Ethan's first company had almost gone bankrupt. The man who proposed with a modest ring because he had not become rich yet. The woman who said yes before he finished asking. They had once been happy without any of this. Before private jets. Before magazine covers. Before assistants scheduled their dinners. Before Ethan began measuring his value by how many rooms went silent when he entered them. Claire's laughter faded. Ethan looked down at Lily. "I'm sorry." Claire stiffened. He wasn't talking to her. He was talking to his daughter. "You don't know what that means yet," he whispered, "but I'm going to spend a long time proving it." Claire looked away. Someone knocked. Margaret entered carefully. "May I?" Claire nodded. Margaret saw Ethan holding Lily and immediately began crying again. "Oh, sweetheart." She crossed the room. Ethan handed the baby to her carefully. Margaret kissed Lily's forehead. Then she looked at Claire. "You should have told me." Claire's eyes filled. "I almost did. I would have helped you." "I know." "Then why?" Claire glanced at Ethan. Margaret understood. And Ethan saw disappointment move across his mother's face. Not anger. Disappointment. Somehow it was worse. Margaret looked at her son. "When your father left, I spent years worrying you would become like him." Ethan's face tightened. "Mom, I was wrong." He relaxed slightly. Then she continued. "You became the opposite of him in the worst possible way." He stared. "He ran from responsibility because he was weak. You tried to control everything because you were afraid of weakness." Margaret looked at Lily. "But fear doesn't become courage just because you put it in an expensive suit." Claire lowered her eyes. Ethan said nothing. Margaret handed Lily back to Claire. "Come downstairs." Claire shook her head. "I shouldn't." Margaret smiled sadly. "This was your home too." "Not anymore." "Then come as my guest." Claire looked at Ethan. He stepped aside. No pressure. No command. No grand speech. She could leave. Ethan would let her. That, more than anything else he had done that night, seemed to surprise her. "All right," Claire said. 20 minutes. The dining room had changed when they returned. The atmosphere of spectacle was gone. Many guests had quietly left. Ethan was grateful. Those who remained no longer looked at Claire like the disgraced ex-wife invited for entertainment. They looked embarrassed. Some approached her to apologize. Claire accepted none of the apologies easily. Ethan respected that. Madison did not return. Neither did Daniel. At dinner, Margaret insisted Claire sit beside her. Ethan sat across the table. Lily slept nearby. For perhaps the first time in his adult life, Ethan ignored every phone vibration. At one point, Jack noticed and smiled. Ethan glared at him. Jack smiled wider. After dinner, the guests gathered around the Christmas tree. Margaret distributed small gifts. Ethan had arranged extravagant presents for everyone. Watches, jewelry, designer bags, rare wines. Claire watched quietly. Then Margaret handed Ethan a small box. This one was found in storage. He opened it. Inside was the wooden snowman. The $5 ornament. Ethan stared. Claire covered her mouth. Margaret smiled. "I couldn't throw it away." Ethan picked it up. The painted smile was chipped. One wooden arm was missing. It looked absurd beside the thousands of dollars in decorations. He stood, walked to the tree, and hung it directly in the center. Claire watched him. "You always hated that thing." "I was wrong about a lot of things. That doesn't make the snowman attractive." "No." For the first time that night, Ethan laughed. A real laugh. "It's terrible." Claire smiled. Character. The word hit them both. He remembered the crooked tree. She remembered too. Midnight approached. Snow thickened outside. Claire checked the weather on her phone. The roads are getting bad. Ethan stood. You can stay. Her expression changed. Guest room. He added quickly. There are 12 of them, pick whichever is farthest from me. Jack nearly choked on his drink. Claire actually laughed. Then she looked toward the windows. Margaret touched her arm. Please don't drive with Lily in this. Claire hesitated. All right. Ethan said nothing. He did not celebrate. He simply asked the housekeeper to prepare a room. At 12:15, Claire carried Lily upstairs. Ethan remained downstairs. Jack joined him by the fireplace. You realize tomorrow is going to be awful. I know. The board will call. Yes. Daniel will hire lawyers. Yes. Madison's father has invested in 2 of your companies. I'm aware. The media will get tonight's story. Probably. Jack poured himself a drink. You could lose a lot of money. Ethan stared into the fire. I already lost more. Jack nodded toward the ceiling. Think Claire will ever forgive you? I don't know. You want her back? Ethan took a long time to answer. I want to become the kind of man she wouldn't have to protect Lily from. Jack smiled faintly. That's a better answer. At 2 in the morning, Ethan was still awake in his study. Claire's pregnancy letter rested on the desk. He read it again. Then came a quiet knock. Claire stood in the doorway holding Lily. What happened? Nothing. Is she okay? Yes. Claire looked exhausted. She won't sleep. Ethan stood immediately. What do you need? Claire stared at him. There was a battle happening behind her eyes. Trust against memory. Hope against self-protection. Then she did something Ethan would remember for the rest of his life. She walked forward and placed Lily in his arms. I need 1 hour of sleep. Ethan froze. Claire held his gaze. You said you wanted to show up. I do. Then show up. She turned. Claire. She stopped. What if she cries? She will. What if she needs something? There's a bottle in the bag. What if that doesn't work? Walk with her. For how long? Claire almost smiled. Welcome to fatherhood. And then she left. Ethan Blake stood in the center of a mansion worth $70 million, holding the only responsibility in his life he could not delegate. Lily stared up at him. Your mother has a strange sense of humor. Lily yawned. He walked. From the study to the hallway. From the hallway to the windows. Back again. He told her about things she could not understand. How he built his first computer at 13. How he once worked 3 jobs. How her grandmother could make the worst meatloaf in Illinois. How he hated Christmas for years because of what happened when he was 12. Then he corrected himself. No. Lily blinked. That's not true. He had not hated Christmas. He had hated needing anyone at Christmas. Because needing people meant they could leave. So Ethan spent half his life leaving first. He looked down at his daughter. I'm not leaving first anymore. Lily fell asleep against his chest. At 3:20 in the morning, Claire returned. She stopped in the doorway. Ethan was sitting in an armchair. Lily slept against him. His phone lay untouched on the desk. Claire watched quietly. Ethan opened his eyes. Did I do it right? Claire nodded. Yes. She stepped forward to take Lily. Ethan looked reluctant. Claire noticed. You'll see her again. He looked up. Tuesday. Tuesday. At the doctor. Yes. What time? 9:30. I'll be there at 9. Claire almost rolled her eyes. Of course you will. She took Lily. Then Ethan noticed Claire was crying. What's wrong? She shook her head. Nothing. Claire. She looked toward the baby. I spent months imagining this. His chest tightened. Imagining what? You holding her. Ethan stood slowly. Claire wiped her cheek. Sometimes I imagined you rejecting her because you thought she would interfere with your life. He looked sick. Sometimes I imagined you trying to take her from me because you had better lawyers. I would never. I know that now. He stopped. That was more forgiveness than he deserved. And sometimes, she continued, I imagined exactly this. What? You loving her immediately. Ethan looked at Lily. Claire's voice broke. And that was the possibility that scared me most. Why? Because then I would have to admit I had kept something beautiful from both of you. Ethan stepped closer but did not touch her. You were protecting her. And maybe protecting myself. That doesn't make you evil. No. She looked at him. And being afraid doesn't excuse what you did either. I know. They stood in silence. Then Claire took a folded piece of paper from the pocket of her robe. I brought this tonight. Ethan accepted it. What is it? A paternity test. His heart stopped. I had one performed privately after Lily was born. He looked at the paper but didn't open it. It confirms what I told you. Why bring it? Because I assumed you would demand proof. Ethan stared at the envelope. Then he tore it in half. Claire's mouth fell open. He tore it again. And again. What are you doing? I don't need it. Ethan, I believe you. You barely believed me when I said I didn't leak files from your company. I know. He dropped the pieces onto the desk. That man is gone. Claire looked at him skeptically. No, he is. Ethan's face fell. He's still you. She shifted Lily in her arms. You don't get to erase him because tonight went well. He nodded slowly. You have to live differently long enough that he stops making your decisions. Ethan looked at the torn paper. How long does that take? Claire gave him a tired smile. I guess we'll see. Morning arrived pale and quiet. The storm had covered Blake Manor in snow. Margaret made breakfast herself, despite 3 chefs being available. Claire came downstairs carrying Lily. Ethan was already there. No suit. No tie. No phone. Just coffee and a nervous expression. Claire stopped. You're awake. I didn't really sleep. She nodded toward Lily. Neither did your daughter. He smiled. My daughter. The words still seemed miraculous. After breakfast, Claire announced that the roads were clear enough to leave. Ethan's expression tightened, but he did not argue. At the front door, Margaret hugged Claire. Then she kissed Lily. Jack wished Claire Merry Christmas and disappeared tactfully. Ethan walked Claire to her car. Snow cracked beneath their shoes. He carried Lily's bag. Claire strapped the baby into her seat. Ethan stood awkwardly beside the open door. What happens now? Claire closed the car door. Now I go home. I mean after that. Tuesday. 9:30. Yes. He nodded. She opened the driver's door. Claire. She turned. I meant what I said. About what? Everything. She stuttered him. Words were never your problem, Ethan. He understood. He reached into his coat pocket and removed his phone. Then he did something she did not expect. He deleted 3 meetings scheduled for Tuesday morning. Not postponed. Deleted. Claire watched. Your company won't collapse because you attend one pediatric appointment. If it does, it deserves to. She smiled despite herself. Then her expression became serious. I'm not promising you anything. I know. I'm not moving back. I know. I'm not pretending the last year didn't happen. I don't want you to. And if you ever use money, lawyers, or your influence to control decisions about Lily, I won't. Claire held up a hand. Don't promise. He stopped. Prove. Ethan nodded. Okay. She got into the car. Before closing the door, she looked at him one last time. Merry Christmas, Ethan. His eyes filled. Merry Christmas, Claire. The car traveled slowly down the driveway. Ethan remained outside until it disappeared beyond the gates. Margaret approached behind him. Cold. Yes. Come inside. In a minute. She stood beside him. You know she may never come back to you. Ethan nodded. I know. You may only get to be Lily's father. Only. Margaret smiled. Ethan looked toward the empty road. For most of my life, I thought winning meant getting everything I wanted. And now, he looked at the enormous mansion behind him. The perfect decorations. The expensive cars. The empire that had once seemed capable of protecting him from every kind of loss. Then he remembered Lily gripping his finger. Now I think winning might mean becoming worthy of what I'm given. Tuesday morning, Claire arrived at Lily's pediatrician's office at 9:22. Ethan was already there. He sat in the waiting room surrounded by exhausted parents, noisy toddlers, plastic toys, and a television playing cartoons. No security team. No assistant. No special treatment. Claire stopped in the doorway. Ethan looked up. You're early. So are you. I said 9. You actually came. He stood. I said I would. Claire looked at him for several seconds. Then she handed him the diaper bag. Hold this. He took it. Is this a test? No. She placed Lily in his arms. This is. Weeks became months. Ethan did not transform overnight. Real change was uglier than that. He missed one feeding because of an emergency board meeting, and Claire reminded him sharply that apologies did not alter calendars. He caught himself once telling Claire he could arrange a better doctor, and immediately recognized the old instinct to solve everything by buying more control. He attended parenting classes. He learned to change diapers. Badly at first. He learned that Barbies did not care about quarterly reports. He learned to leave meetings on time. He learned that when Claire said no, the correct response was sometimes simply no. The investigation into Daniel became public. Blake Technologies' stock fell temporarily. Ethan testified before the board. He admitted his failures. Daniel was eventually charged with financial crimes related to the leak and hidden trading accounts. Ethan lost money, a great deal of it, and discovered, to his surprise, that the sun still rose. Madison sent him one message months later. I hope you finally learned the difference between being wanted and being useful. He replied with 2 words. I did. Claire watched from a distance. She did not reward Ethan quickly. She did not mistake guilt for transformation. She had spent too many years adjusting herself around his ego. But she noticed things. He came when he said he would. He listened. He stopped turning every disagreement into a negotiation he needed to win. On Lily's first birthday, Ethan threw no enormous party. Claire had warned him. 20 people maximum. He invited 18. Why 18? You said 20 maximum. She stared. He smiled. I'm learning. They celebrated in Claire's backyard. Paper decorations. A homemade cake. Children running through sprinklers. Ethan sat on the grass in a shirt Lily had covered with frosting. Jack took a photograph. Ethan later framed it. Not because he looked successful, because he looked happy. A year after the Christmas party, Claire returned to Blake Manor on Christmas Eve. This time, there were no reporters, no investors, no celebrity chef, no woman in a red dress selected to prove anything. Margaret made dinner. Jack brought pie. Lily, now walking, immediately attacked the lower branches of the Christmas tree. Ethan chased her. Claire stood in the doorway laughing. The tree leaned slightly to the left. Ethan had decorated it himself. Badly. In the center hung the wooden snowman. Still chipped. Still missing one arm. Claire walked toward it. You kept him. Apparently, he has character. She looked at Ethan. You remembered. I remember more now. Lily stumbled toward them, holding a small wrapped box. Ethan crouched. What have you got? She handed it to Claire. Claire looked at Ethan suspiciously. What did you buy? Open it. If this is jewelry. It is. If it's property. It is. If it involves lawyers. No lawyers. Claire opened the box. Inside was a simple wooden ornament. 3 names had been carved into it. Claire. Ethan. Lily. No title. No surname. No ownership. Just 3 names. Claire stared. Ethan immediately looked nervous. It doesn't mean what you think. What do I think? I don't know, that's why I'm clarifying. She laughed. He continued. It isn't a proposal. Good. It isn't me asking you to move back. Also good. It's just. He looked at Lily. A reminder of the Christmas I almost missed. Claire's eyes filled. Ethan swallowed. And maybe a reminder that I don't want to miss another one. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she hung the ornament beside the broken snowman. Ethan smiled. Claire looked at him. You know Lily's asleep by 7:30. Yes. My sister offered to keep her next Saturday. Ethan froze. Claire almost laughed at his expression. And there's a restaurant downtown I've been wanting to try. He stared at her. Are you asking me to dinner? I'm considering it. As Lily's father. No. He stopped breathing. Claire stepped closer. As Ethan. For once, he did not rush the moment. He did not promise forever. He did not reach for something he had not been given. He simply smiled. I'd like that. Claire nodded. One dinner. One dinner. No private jet. Okay. No buying the restaurant. I wasn't going to. She raised an eyebrow. I was only thinking about it. Claire laughed. Lily shouted from across the room. Both of them turned at once. And Ethan understood something money had hidden from him for years. A family was not something a man possessed. It was something he participated in. Day after day. Failure after failure. Promise after proven promise. He had once invited Claire to Christmas because he wanted her to see everything he had gained without her. Instead, she arrived carrying living proof of everything he had lost. And by sunrise, the most unthinkable thing had happened. Claire had trusted him with their daughter. Not forever. Not completely. For 1 hour. One fragile hour in the middle of the night. That hour became an appointment. The appointment became ordinary Tuesdays. Tuesdays became birthdays. Birthdays became another Christmas. And eventually, perhaps, trust would become something neither of them was ready to name yet. Ethan had spent years believing the biggest decisions were the ones announced in rooms full of powerful people. He was wrong. The decision that changed his life happened quietly. A tired mother placed a sleeping baby into his arms and said, "Show up." So he did. Again. And again. Until one Christmas later, the crooked tree stood glowing in a house that finally looked lived in. Dear viewers, this story is a reminder that pride can make us destroy the very relationships we secretly value most. Ethan had wealth, influence, success, and almost everything money could provide, yet none of it could replace the trust he broke or the months he lost with his daughter. His public apology mattered, but what truly changed his life was what came afterward: accepting responsibility, showing up consistently, listening instead of controlling, and understanding that forgiveness cannot be demanded or purchased. If you believe people deserve the opportunity to change when they are genuinely willing to accept responsibility for their actions, and if you believe family, truth, humility, and trust are worth more than pride and wealth, kindly subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss more powerful stories like this. And tell us in the comments, would you have done what Claire did and given Ethan another chance to prove himself as a father, or would what he did during their marriage have been impossible for you to forgive?